Whatever the opposite of clutch is, that is exactly what the Cincinnati Reds lineup was on Friday.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. My name's Steven Offenbaker. That guy over there, he's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We have been covering this team in podcast form for a combined 14 years now, believe it or not. We love talking Reds baseball. We love talking baseball in general, and we love doing those things with you. Thanks so much for making us your first listen today. On today's show, a little bit later, we're going to get into the fact that the Reds are simply out of excuses. It's do or die. The time is now. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. That's coming up in just a few minutes. Also, we're going to have a fun little exercise in who would you take if you had the opportunity to make the pick over again right now from the last draft? Would you still take Chase Burns, or would you go with Kurtz from the A's? Because it's a very interesting discussion that we're going to get into in just a few minutes. But where we are going to start on today's show is the fact that if there is a runner on base, seemingly the guy at bat for the Reds can't hit the ball. They have been really bad with runners in scoring position. We're going to break it down and kind of tell you how bad it's been and what they need to do to fix it. We've got all that for you on today's show, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, you drop a $5 bet and it wins $300 in bonus bets back if you win. Download the FanDuel app today to get started. And Jeff, let's get started with this runners in scoring position conversation, because you dug into the numbers and came up angry. And it's pretty justifiable that you came up angry, because the Reds were not only bad last night against an A's team they should have dominated, but there's been a reoccurring pattern throughout this season. And when you really start to break down these numbers, you can clearly see where the deficiencies are.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like when the Reds have nights like they had on Friday night, there's a lot of people that try to get my mentions or send me a message or something like that and say, this lineup is historically bad. It's not historically bad. It's just very mid. They are literally in the middle of every possible statistical category when it comes to hitting, except for when runners are in scoring position. They are pretty bad at that, although they aren't the worst, but they're still bad. And I don't think they're like historically bad. They're just historically frustrating. And there's no number that really compounds that. It's just, we know what happens because there was so much momentum going into Friday night's game. The Reds could be a half game out. They could be tied in the loss column with the Mets, and they have one more game than the Mets do. They have a chance to control their own destiny, and they handed it right back because they went 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position. They got the leadoff man on 6 times in those 9 innings. That means that 6 out of the 9 innings, when they were at bat, they had a guy on base and nobody out, including the second inning where Will Benson tripled with nobody out and did not move. There's so much that's frustrating about that, but that follows a theme that the Reds have had this year. They are 21st when you look at OPS, on base plus slugging, 21st in Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position when it comes to OPS. And they are just so annoyingly unclutch. Whatever the word of not, or whatever the opposite of clutch is, that's what this lineup is. And they showed it just far, far too many times. If they would have done it one time, Steve, I think one time they probably would have won on Friday, but they didn't even do it once.
I want to ask you 2 questions that are fan driven. They're comment section driven. And I want to talk about 2 things in relationship to specifically last night's game, but in general, the way the Reds have operated, because last night was not the first time that we've had an inning where somebody led off with a triple and the Reds didn't get him home. I recall other instances of this. Where are you now on, well, they should have done a safety squeeze. They should have dropped down a bunt. They should have tried to manufacture a run there. Given this team's history now throughout this year, you're Tito Francona in that dugout. You've got Will Benson on third with nobody out. Do you consider doing a squeeze? Because Benson's not slow.
Right. And it's tough because I think in that situation, you definitely consider it. The guy's following Will Benson were Spencer Steer, Key Brian Hayes, and Matt McLean, and all three of those guys have some ability to bunt. And at the same time, what they did was all three of them struck out. So if you just put the ball in play, you give yourself a chance to score. Maybe I would have, like, going back 2020, hindsight being 2020, I think I would have, just to put the ball in play and see what they could do, because you hit a leadoff triple, you think, all right, one of the next two guys can hit a fly ball to the outfield. And like you mentioned, Benson's fast enough, and I don't fear anybody's arm in the A's outfield, that he should have been able to score. But the fact that they couldn't even get the ball in play makes me think that, yeah, I mean, now knowing what we know, I would have taken a safety squeeze at that.
I think for me, because it went Steer Hayes, I think after Steers made his out, I would have bunted Hayes, because also he's fast enough. Maybe he makes something happen.
Right.
The second piece of this, things that we're seeing when the Reds have performed like this, this is a pattern with them. You see a lot of these guys should be embarrassed. These guys should be, just beating themselves into the ground because of the way they performed. I'm not going to lie. If we had recorded this immediately after the game last night, where the Reds get shut out by an A's team, we probably have been doing that. But baseball is the reason it's a 162 game season. There's a reason that, even though the A's are not good, they are Major League Baseball players. Stuff happens. I don't think it's an embarrassment. I do think, though, it should be a wake-up call.
Yeah. Sparky said there'd be days like this. But when it comes to what the Reds have done multiple times this season, we see what happens next. Terry Francona galvanizes them, or Chris Valaika galvanizes them, or heck, somebody in the locker room galvanizes them, and they come out and they bounce back. So they got to do that. But they keep forcing themselves into that corner. And that's the frustrating part as a fan who watches every single game. There's going to be a couple of more times the rest of this way that we're just going to be so amped up. But I was letting myself just get really excited, and I was letting hope back in. And I'm like, man, oh boy, they got a shot. And then immediately, right out of the gate, they get two guys on base in the first inning. You're like, all right, guys, let's go. No runs. And then the A's come up, leadoff home run from Lawrence Butler. And you're like, what are we doing? And that's how I felt for the rest of that game.
I'm glad you brought up Chris Valaika, because we see a lot of comments about him right now. And that's never good when you're a hitting coach. If people are talking about you, it's never good. Are you out on Chris Valaika at this point, given how this team has performed this year, and specifically with stats like we're talking about today? 21st, right? 21st.
Right. I don't think so, because I think this is just more of what we saw from last year. I think that this year, more than any other year, has proven that you can have whatever coaching staff you want to have if your talent on the field is deficient, or if your talent on the field is not yet proven, or if your talent on the field has questions. Doesn't matter who's coaching them. And we said that before. We said that even when David Bell was here. We're just like Sparky Anderson said multiple different times, that the reason I am who I am is because they are who they are, pointing to the guys on the field, because he got to manage the grade 8. And when it comes to Terry Francona, I think a lot of our criticisms have come from different decisions that he has made, but it is clear that it's multiple different times where he's rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
That's fair. I think, in relationship to Francona, and first of all, if anybody thinks that Terry Francona is on the hot seat, get out of here with that. Secondly,
I've seen
secondly,
that. That's hilarious.
I have too. That's not a thing. That's not something we're doing. But as far as Valaika goes, I think he gets another year. And I'm curious. I kind of lean the way you're describing, which is he needs a little bit more time to kind of try and undo what's gone on around here for the last couple of years. So they need to figure something out quickly, though.
I think the key to this is something that Terry Francona, he gave an interview to the media the other day, and it was clipped and it was sent around, and a lot of people were misunderstanding what he said, because he was asked about the power thing. He's been asked about the power thing all year long. And this answer sounded so much more reflective and so much more honest and so much more defeated than he has sounded for most of the year, because he would say things like, he was saying things like, that's not really something we can change right now. That's something you look at in the off season. And I'm like, oh, Terry about to get in Nick Krall's office this offseason and tell him, you go get that guy right now. And whoever that guy is, he's going to be pointing on a board and saying, that guy's a free agent. You go get him right now, and let's make this team better for next year. I think that's what we're looking at right here, which is the annoying part. Like if the Reds do end up missing the postseason, it's going to be clear it's because of the talent on the field. And I don't want people thinking that, well, it's something that Chris Valaika told him. Chris Valaika doesn't have this like magic spell book of awesome hitting that he can give to people here. Like it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some good moves this offseason. But speaking of moves, Steve, we got to see the differences between first round picks from last year. You don't really get to see that a whole lot in Major League Baseball. And I'm wondering if the Reds made the right decision. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There's so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you need to give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people, including myself. Look, I got some bad genes when it comes to hair loss, and I'm combating that with Nutrafol. And it's not just hype. This supplement is clinically tested and targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. And you can feel good about knowing that Nutrafol is NSF certified and backed by peer-reviewed studies. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On Reds listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Thank you for always making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine, making us your first listen, your second listen. It's a Saturday. This is weird doing this on a Saturday. Steve is standing. We're doing all kind of different things here on this episode of Locked On Reds. So make sure you become an everydayer. That way you get to see all the different things that we do here on Locked On Reds, because we're with you every single day. All right,
hey,
Steve,
how excited are your parents when they listen to the ad read and hear that they gave you bad genes, just out of curiosity?
Oh, they know, and it's not their fault. It's like way down the line. They know. And it's not really on my dad's side either. So dad is, leaning back in his chair, feeling pretty good. Anyway, when it comes to Friday night's game, there was something that happened, albeit I was really annoyed by this point because it was the bottom of the 8th inning and the Reds had already squandered so many opportunities. But in a vacuum, this is something I really wanted to see, because Chase Burns faced Nick Kurtz. Nick Kurtz was the number 4 pick in last year's draft, in the 2024 MLB draft. And of course, Chase Burns was the Reds pick at number 2. So the Reds had a chance to draft both of these guys. And my question to you is, Steve, and I have my answer. Knowing what we know now, not knowing what we know in the future, but knowing what we know now, would you rather take Chase Burns or Nick Kurtz? Because I would rather have Nick Kurtz.
Well, first off, you buried the lead. Chase Burns came out of the bullpen for the Cincinnati Reds in last night's game and looked pretty good, throwing the ball 100 miles an hour.
When his first pitch was that slider, too. It's nasty. Oh.
As long as Chase Burns is back in the rotation next year, I'm okay with this right now. The bullpen needed a pun intended shot in the arm. They got it.
This is just fun. Yeah.
It's just a fun. Yeah. So to your question, I'm going to tell you why I would stick with Chase Burns. And I know you would go with Kurtz, and you're going to have a lot of good reasons why, but I'm going to tell you that you also have to take into account the organization that's doing the drafting. So when you look at this Cincinnati Reds team, they are never going to go out and spend the money to get a pitcher like Chase Burns. It's never, ever, ever going to happen. They're simply never going to do it. There is some fluke of a world out there where they can package up some pitching and go trade for a guy like Kurtz or go sign a free agent like Kurtz. Maybe, just maybe. But there is no world where they can go out in free agency and sign a Chase Burns. It's just not going to happen. So I draft Chase Burns just like they did last year to continue to fortify the rotation, to continue to have excess pitching that eventually one of those dudes is going to get packaged up to go get you a hitter, to go get you a guy that can hit a home run. Versus you draft a first baseman, great, but now you've got, Jeff Hoffman back in the rotation for the Cincinnati Reds, and it effectively negates having a good bopper at first base. So I like what the Reds did. I understand why they did it. I understand what they're doing with the hoarding of pitching, and I would stick with that decision if I was making the pick over again.
Of all the names you could have pulled out of a hat, you pulled Jeff Hoffman out of a hat. He's like the closer for the Blue Jays now. You just did that. Yeah, you just did that for me.
I did exactly that for you.
Don't know
you and Jeff Hoffman's dad, who is still mad at you.
You should be thinking. I should be thinking you're not. But no, it's tough because this is a comparison of who's best. I'm not saying that I think that Chase Burns is not going to pan out at all. I think he's going to be awesome and have an amazing career. But what's the thing that the Reds need right now? Power. Mm-hmm. What's the thing that the Reds need badly next year? A cleanup hitter. Nick Kurtz, at 22 years old and barely any time in the minor leagues, because like we said, he was drafted last year when Chase Burns was, has a 175 OPS plus this year, Steve. And that is in 368 at-bats, because we always note that OPS plus is not a cumulative stat, but the sample size is huge here. He has 4.9 WAR. He has almost 2 WAR more than Ellie. He's that much better than him at the plate. And defensively, I mean, he looked fine. There was nothing in his game that I really was like, on Friday night. But his slash line is 299, 393, 620. This is his starting point. And I kind of feel like for anybody that's going to argue, oh, this might just be the best year of his career, we don't know that. But at the same time, I'd take 30 home runs on this team right now, and that's what Nick Kurtz has. He has 11 more home runs than Ellie does, and he'd be far and away the most home runs hit on this team. He would satisfy every need that the Reds have in the lineup, and he's on a rookie contract for he's not arbitration eligible for like the next couple of years. So I think that there's so much about this where I'm like, man, Chase Burns himself is an amazing talent, and the Reds are lucky to have a guy like that. But at the same time, they have a lot of organizational depth in the pitching spot. I'd love to have Nick Kurtz.
Oh, careful there, because let's just say we do it your way. Let's say they draft Kurtz and we don't have Burns. That means that Chase Petty got every start that Burns made this year, because that was the next guy. And we know how Chase Petty did in his appearances at the major league level. So, does that keep the Reds in this wild card hunt? When you've got, a great first baseman that can mash the ball, but you've got a pitcher every 5th day that's going to give up 15 runs. So you have to ask yourself, what's the trade-off? I don't think you're wrong. Okay. I'm taking the other side of this thing.
It's more of a fun discussion. Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like when we had the argument about like, are you in on the Reds? Or are you out on the Reds? We can see the logic in being either. I can see the logic in being on either side of this question. You want to take Kurtz, you want to take Burns. But
at the same time, there's no recourse to be had. So let's take this in a different direction. Let's say this. Is it time this offseason for the Reds to extend Chase Burns?
Yeah. I'd be okay with that.
Buy out a few free agent years or something. Yeah, I think
same like Hunter Greene deal. Same like the Hunter Greene deal.
Would that be the best move they can make this offseason?
With the talent that's on the team right now, yeah, because everybody else is a question mark, and Ellie's not going to sign an extension. So that's probably your move.
I think so too. I do know this. Like, I'm super excited to have Chase Burns on this ball club, and it's clear that he can be an ace, maybe not next year, but like in 2 years, he could really push Hunter Greene to be the ace of this staff. man, Nick Kurtz would look good in this lineup. But that was more of just a fun discussion because, like we said, it can't really.
Well, it is, and
unless we get a time.
And you left out the most important stat. Chase Burns 1, Kurtz 0.
Yeah, it was but 1 foot. If he hits it 1 foot farther, it's a home run. But yeah,
hey, almost only counts in horseshoes, baby. Only counts in horseshoes. Listen,
we got to
Jeff,
in here.
because the Cincinnati Reds took a day off yesterday and managed to get shut out by the A's, they find themselves in a position where they are now out of excuses and they have to go. We're going to talk about what the rest of this weekend looks like coming up next.
The NFL is here, college football is here, and we're in the stretch run of baseball season. You got to head on over to FanDuel right now because there's so much to jump into. Plus, they've got this amazing offer. I haven't seen this offer in a long time. You place your $5 bet. If you win that first $5 bet on your new account, then you will get $300 in bonus bets. Yeah. 300. That's like double what it normally is. FanDuel's giving out the big deals here at the beginning of football season and down the stretch run when it comes to baseball. So many different things to look at. You still have plenty of futures when it comes to the NFL or college football. You've got prop bets every single week, like passing yards and touchdowns and rushing yards, receiving. And let me tell you what, I'm just taking the over on everything offensive for the Reds. They have got to bounce back. That was a horrible game on Friday night. It's time for the bats to go. And if the bats ain't going to go, then I don't know what's going to happen. They know, and they'll go. So you got to go to FanDuel. Download the app today, create an account, and you'll be able to place your first $5 bet. And when it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Head on over to FanDuel right now.
If you can't watch us here on YouTube, check us out on the audio side. We're seriously on every single podcasting app that's out there. If we're not on one you need us to be on, message Jeff. He'll make it happen for you. Click the subscribe button over there. Click the subscribe button over here on the video. You're going to get all the great Reds content we've got for you all season long. All right, Jeff, let's talk about this weekend because the one thing this team has been consistent at is doing what we ask them to do the most frustrating way possible. I'm seriously going to get that made on a banner for the end of this season with 2025 on it. But we said that the absolute, right? A lot of fun banners. That and the LE 162 banner, right? You look at where they are now and what we said, the bare minimum, the floor of expectation, like the thing they had to do. And if they do worse than that, it's done. We said they had to go 4-2 over the next 2 series, right? And so that means they could lose a game against the A's. Well, they've done that. So now they've got 2 games remaining in Sacramento. Hunter Greene, Lodolo on the mound for the Cincinnati Reds on back-to-back days. They're out of excuses. There is simply no reason that the Reds should not win the next 2. The Reds have to win the next 2.
Yeah, you got Ace 1A and 1B on the mound coming up these next couple of days. And it's interesting because the pitching matchups are strange. They're facing Luis Severino, who does not pitch well at Sutter Health Park there. And he also hates pitching there. I remember there for a minute at the trade deadline, he was trying to get out of the A's and go to any other place and pitch. And then you have this young dude who is pitching on Sunday, Luis Morales. He's 22 years old, Steve. He has 1.2 WAR in just 6 starts. He has pitched really well. So a little bit different from the other guys that I thought we would look at in this series. He's got some promise. But it's Greene and Lodolo. There's no excuses to lose these 2 games. And we find the Reds back themselves into a corner now. And I kind of wonder a little bit because we were discussing this a bit in prep, but I'm almost more worried about the Giants at this point than I am about the Mets. It feels like the Mets are doing all they can to hand that final wild card spot to somebody. And as much as the Reds have tried to be that somebody, they've also tried to let anybody else in. Oh, here come the Giants. They're on a hot streak. They're the game that's ahead of the Reds they're the team that's ahead of the Reds right now. It's tough because the Reds have to win these next 2 games. I feel like if they lose one of these next 2 games, we're right back where we were a couple of days ago thinking 0.5%, man, 0.5%.
Right. You look at the rest of the weekend and let's take the whole picture because what we're talking about here is an opportunity to get into the final wild card slot. San Francisco is at Los Angeles. They're playing the Dodgers. They win it on a walk-off last night. The Dodgers are going to come out scrappy. I think the Dodgers win the next two. The Mets are just you want to talk about a team being historically bad. The baseball that the New York Mets is playing right now is pretty terrible. It's just bad, historically bad.
They can't pitch.
And they're facing a Texas Rangers team that is on fire right now. Yeah. So it's possible the Rangers sweep that series. So you've got the two teams in front of the Reds facing two really, really good teams right now that are motivated, because the Dodgers, it's easy to say, oh, the Dodgers are going to the playoffs. The Dodgers are going to, San Diego's not messing around. So you look at those two series and you ask yourself, and you've got the Reds with Greene and Lodolo facing the A's. Like, everything is lined up for the Cincinnati Reds to make a move right here, right now. And if they don't take advantage of this spot in the season where they're at right now, getting ready to go face the division the rest of the way, it's just a failure at every level. They have to win the next two games.
It's conceivable that the Mets could continue losing, but I think at some point they break this losing streak. I think they probably win one in the next 2 days. So that means that if the Reds win the next two, then they will be a half game out on Monday. And that's absolutely possible. And they're heading into St. Louis and all this other stuff, that they could still be a half game out. And we're right back where, we were a couple of weeks ago when we were riding so high on excitement and momentum and stuff like that. But as much as the pitching matchups favor them, just comes back down to that lineup. And like I mentioned earlier on in the show, not necessarily talking about the RISP, the runners in scoring position, but looking at everything else. When it comes to runs per game, they are right on the league average line. When it comes to total runs, right at league average line. When it comes to batting average, they are literally the median team at 249. When it comes to on-base percentage, they are literally the median team at 317 for on-base percentage. So, and it's the slugging percentage that's the big difference. But you're at one of the best places. Like, you could argue that the A's home stadium is even better, even easier. I don't know why I couldn't say easier of a home run hitting atmosphere than Great American. But we harp so much on the Reds being able to hit home runs at home. They got to hit home runs here, because that's all that the A's did on Friday night. They hit 3 home runs. They won the game. They only needed 1 home run, coincidentally, but they hit 3 home runs and they won the game. You got to hit home runs. Somebody's got to step up and hit the long ball. And they took their guy out of the lineup that can do that the best, at least currently right now in this tunnel vision version of time, in Sal Stewart. He didn't play at all on Friday night. So he's got to get back in the lineup. We need to see that big ass swing going. Sorry, just said a bad word there. But I'm fired up, Steve. They got to hit the ball far.
All right. This is what we're doing today. Okay. No, Jeff, you're not wrong. And the absence of power has been a conversation. It is a conversation, and it's going to be a conversation as we head into the offseason. You're right. Anybody that has the potential to really go long ball right now should be in the lineup for the Reds tonight. We obviously, as we're recording here on Saturday morning, we haven't seen what that's going to look like yet, but I bet you're right. Sal Stewart will be in the lineup, I think, tonight. And the Reds have to win this game.
Again too. Yeah.
They have to treat this game like it's game 163. Like, you have to do everything you got to do to win it, and just live to play another day. That's, we've gone from every series as a playoff series to almost every game right now being, you have to win to live another day. And by the time we get through the weekend, we could be back into it's every series again. But right now they can't afford to lose. They have to win the next 2 games.
Have to win this game. And we've said that a lot this year. I'm telling you what, I don't know if I'm going to need a pacemaker. Probably next year.
I'm exhausted.
But it's going to be.
I'm exhausted.
When the season ends, whenever that is, and Lord willing, that's after a playoff series or 2. But when the season ends, we're just going to exhale and relax. I mean, I took a trip to the beach, Steve, like a week ago, to rest up from all this stuff. I took a trip too early is what I'm learning, because I'm just right back where I was stress level wise with this team. But here we go. Must win game is game 163. From here on out, we're saying is game 163, and we'll be covering game 163 versions 1 and 2 on Monday. Whenever we wrap up this series, make sure that you check us out then. We will be in your feed every single day the rest of the way because we love these Reds. And we're giving you all the Reds content you can handle. So is Tim Daniel on the Reds Postcast live at the end of every ball game. Make sure you check him out. Subscribe to the channel. That way you get all of the Reds content that we have for you because we are Locked On Reds every single day.
How excited is Tim Daniel that this West Coast business is almost over? Can you imagine?
I think he's going to have a party at the end of tonight's game.